Welcome back to Passionate About Music Education, a channel dedicated to you, the music educator. My name is Rachel Hardman. Today I'm going to share some strategies that you can use within the classroom to help your singing students. Over the last few months, I've been working with singers in different settings, and I've found that the majority of the time we've been having the same conversations. How do we improve? How do we develop? And what their fears are as singers. I found it very fascinating that the fears, regardless of age, were the same. So I wanted to jump on here and make a video, talk about the fears that singers have and ways that we can help them within our own personal setting. As a musician, you already know that playing a musical instrument creates a barrier between you and the audience. So if you're playing the clarinet or the saxophone or the piano, that instrument is playing, you're making it work in this audience. And although it is you controlling the instrument and making the sound, if it squeaks, if it plays the wrong note, there's a safety net. You can blame the instrument. We've all done it, let's be honest. When the clarinet squeaks, you can't look at it and kind of roll your eyes, oh, that's the reed. Obviously it's not, but that's what we do. But with singing, you don't have that same sort of barrier, it is literally you and the audience, you and your performance. There is no hiding when you sing. So it does make singing a lot more personal and a lot more exposed, which is what often creates a lot of the fear for our students. So one of the first strategies that I like to use within a singing lesson, regardless of ability, regardless of setting, whether it's individual or choir, is ask the question, what problem do you have at the moment? What fear do you have? What challenge do you have? Generally, they'll be able to answer you. And most of the time, that fear will come back to mispitching or making a mistake. They already have this fear factor of making a mistake and being judged for it. And this is a kind of very normal fear, and it's also because in many ways anybody starting to learn to sing will have seen some of the talent shows on TV and they will know what the judgments that are constantly made. So I think in that respect, from when I first started teaching to now, that fear factor has grown because of this kind of society judgment that we see so readily. So once you find out what their fear is, and generally it's linked to making mistakes, you can normalize that fear. So I have an adult student who's singing. He's a great singer, but for him it's always the fear of coming in on the wrong note to start with, that fear of mispitching. He's like, once I get the key and I get going, I'm okay, but it's always knowing when to come in, particularly if he's singing in his head voice, he's going up to those higher notes, which is not as confident as performing just yet. It's really important as a music educator, somebody who's already gone through all of this pain, who's already experienced all of these challenges, to normalize that fear, to take that as a normal part of learning musical instruments. Because when we take out the fear and go, do you know how you're feeling singing the wrong note? Everybody has that fear. Everybody worries about it, whether you're a professional or a beginner. Suddenly it makes learning music less daunting. It's the same way as when everybody goes skiing for the first time. You put those ski boots on, you're holding a stick and standing on 2 planks of wood and you're pointing down a mountain. And you go, what am I doing? This is crazy. Why am I doing this? Well, everybody had that fear to start with. And if we normalise it and go, well, that's quite normal. If you give them some steps to take that fear out, then you'll see the progression. They will feel more confident to try. It's all right for them to fail. It's all right for them to make mistakes because that's what your studio setting's about. Whether you're teaching in a classroom or teaching in a music studio, you're wanting your students to try, to practice, to experiment and to make mistakes. So again, create a culture that it's okay to fail, and we all make mistakes regardless of whether we're professional level performers or we're a total beginner. It's the same whether we do this for sports or we do it for the arts or we do it for learning, coding, whatever it is that we're learning new, there is always a fear factor. We have to help our students step into the unknown, to have courage to step into that unknown, to try something new. So for really that strategy too is to normalise as much as you can their fear in a supportive way. Not, oh, don't worry, everybody has that fear, you know, you'll be fine, just get over it. It's not that. It's been, okay, I've heard it, I'm hearing you, I'm supporting you, I understand your fear, and let me help you go past that fear. I'll be here to support you go past that fear. That's your job as a music educator, is to, you know, guide them through that fear to the other side. You are their guide because you're wise. You've already done this. Think of yourself as the guide and they are the hero. How do you help the hero become more experienced, get to the end of the journey? That's your job. That's your role. Because you've already been through that. You're already that hero. You're already that beginner. You've already experienced all of that pain that they're feeling, and you've come the other side. So it's now your turn to help them know that they will be able to get through it. So really, for strategy 3, it is to explore their fear, to experiment. And again, most of the time it comes back to controlling the voice, that sort of technique. So I had a lady in a choir that I'm running, and we were talking about, what challenges do you have? You know, what are you worried about? And she was very honest, very brave, and said, I worry about controlling the notes as I go higher. She says, I'm okay when I'm singing low notes, but I'm struggling to control them. When I get higher, I'm frightened that I'm singing them wrong. So we did some warm-up activities. We looked at the difference between singing in chest voice and head voice. We talked about the power that you're going to have in the head voice compared to the chest voice. Talk about where that actually physically happens within your body. We talked about it and we did it practically. And then for the rest of the rehearsal, it was, well, which part are we doing now? What are we doing? Are we singing chest voice, head voice? Do we need to think about how this beginning phrase starts low and then goes high, so we have to switch? Where are we going to switch? What word are we going to switch? Because once you normalize that fear, once you help them with the technical aspect of how to do it, they grow in confidence. And they all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's an ongoing learning process. You know that as a musician. You've been doing this long enough to know that we never fix it in one rehearsal or one practice. And again, we need to normalise that with our students. This is going to take a few weeks for you to master. This is something you need to practice because you can't do it straight away. None of us can, because it's just something new, and it's what makes it frustrating and challenging. It's because it's new and the brain doesn't like it and it just wants to go back to comfort. But don't be afraid to then bring in the technique and apply it to the piece that they're using. So we did a technical that sort of technique within the warm-up, and then when we were performing the piece, because we went straight into learning a new song, was okay, so we've been talking about head voice, chest voice, and how to control those higher notes. Let's talk about it here. How can we apply it to this piece of music? What do you think? Because once they can apply that technique to a piece, it makes more sense. It becomes real life. So for strategy number 4, wherever you are teaching a new technique, a new concept, a new thought process to help their fear, to help them improve, develop, try to relate it to the music that they're performing. Try to get them to think about how they can apply this technique to the phrase they're about to sing, to the new piece of music that they're learning. Because once they're starting to apply it, it becomes something that they're going to be successful at. And again, normalise it. So if you've got a student who's singing and they're working on the pitch and the rhythm and they're getting that completely right, if you say, right, when you sing this phrase, I really want you to work on the dynamics, the air control, they're probably going to concentrate completely on the dynamic and air control and make some mistakes in the rhythm and pitch because the brain's shifting to thinking about something new. It's part of practicing how you just have to keep repeating it until you become confident, until the brain has it settled. Because we're always asking the brain to learn something new when we're doing music. We're asking it to learn new patterns, new shapes, new positions, how it feels physically in our body. How are we going to breathe? Can we hold that low note for 8 beats or 16 beats? How does that feel when we sing it quietly and high, or when we sing it low and loud? They're very different. We have to kind of encourage our students to understand that there's a sort of a cognitive part, and there's also then that physical part of learning music, which is why they need to practice. The last tip really is to get the students to explain back the concept that you've taught them and how they've applied it to the music. Because by them explaining it, you'll understand whether they've understood it, or wherever they have grasped the concept, and then they'll probably ask you more questions. They'll go, well, okay, now I've done this, what happens when I apply it to this situation? And that will help them become more inquisitive about learning, but it also gives them something for you to help them go and practice. So if they're worried about high notes, you might want to give them some exercises, or if they're worried about how to breathe properly, again, you go, well, this is something you can work on for next week, and this is how I want you to work it. Well, you put it into your lesson planning. But of course, with all of these tips is to remember to praise your student, because any time they are stepping into fear, being vulnerable, telling you their fears about music and how they don't want to make mistakes, it's our job to try and encourage them to keep being honest, keep stepping into it, because that's how they'll develop. There's praise when they've done something successful, when they've sung a phrase. And again, normalize it. I mean, for my adult singer, he can sing, pitch and rhythm, and he's always worrying that he's mispitching. And I'm like, no, if you were, I'd stop you and we'd work on that phrase, or we'd fix that interval jump. What we're now working at is the technical aspect, how to sing it with more control. And that's the part that I'm coaching you in. This is the part I'm supporting you in, because this is something that is what you need me to help you with now, because this is a new challenge for you. These strategies really have come out of teaching in different settings over the last couple of months, but they all kept coming back to the same concepts, the same conversations of that fear factor, how our students feel when they're learning something new, and how we as music educators and musicians can help our students overcome those fears so that they can keep improving and developing, and that they will continue to love music, singing, playing instruments long beyond the classroom for the rest of their life. And let's make music a lifelong hobby, skill or career for our students. I'd love to know what your best strategy is for helping your singing students grow in confidence and ability. We'd love to see it in the chat below. This is a community of music educators, people who are passionate about music education. Hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, share it with your colleagues, and I look forward to seeing you again here on the channel.